G'day guys, JB here. Thanks to all those people that said they wanted to see my in the bag. So for all you guys, here it is. This is what a middle of the road disc golfer uses in his bag. I've got Ranger H2O, really good for all weather conditions. It has its own water pouch for the really hot conditions. It's got a rain fly for when it is wet. So pretty good durable bag. Inside, start off with my drivers. So for me, the way I set up my bag, I generally want to try and throw more or less the same throw every time and have the disc be the thing which changes the outcome of what I actually do. So my two main overstable drivers, which I generally bring out in windier conditions, I have a Fusion Defender. This is my backhand into the wind disc for strong winds. Quite a good sort of reliable flight. Enforcers and Raiders, those sorts of things, just too much disc for me. I can't get them to fly really well and consistently, whereas I can get some distance into the wind with a little bit more glide with a Defender. It fits my hand just a little bit better than those ones do as well. One of the things about the discs that I use, my hand is quite small, so I'm looking for discs that are reasonably shallow that I can actually get a decent sort of grip on and a good release out of my hand. If the disc is too deep for me, I find that it doesn't release out of my hand really well. So the Defender for me is my choice, my disc of choice for into the wind shots. So the next disc in the bag is the Ballista Pro. I'm using this mainly on forehands for distance. I throw backhand and forehand, and I find that the Ballista Pro, again, it's fairly narrow, it's fairly short in terms of the width, so I can get a nice, comfortable grip out of it. I don't throw it backhand very often, but I find I can get a nice little bit of turn and fade back and some good distance with the Ballista Pro as my forehand specialist into the wind disc. Okay, so the next discs in my bag are more my workhorse drivers, I suppose, in a lot of ways. I have initially a Scandinavian Open Snowline Ballista, really unique in the Ballista world, a little bit more overstable than a regular Ballista. It is my max distance disc. As much as it is a high-speed disc, it seems to sit in my hand really, really well and fly out really, really well. So that's absolutely, it's amazing how far the ballistas fly. Dave Feldberg gave me a Team 64 Ballista Snowline, which I absolutely love, which became a little bit more too understable for me. This has held its stability now since 2015. I've got a spare one, thank goodness. They are a really unique disc, the Snowline Ballista, the Scandinavian Open ones. There's a bit of fade in a Ballista. There's a little bit less fade in a Sheriff. So my other workhorse, if you like, in reasonably calm conditions is a Sheriff. It will give me a small amount of turn with a little bit less fade than the Scandinavian Open Ballista. I've got two swords. I love swords. I've been throwing them for quite a while now. Super straight. This one has held its stability really, really well. I believe there is a rumour going about that the metallic plastics, the metallic colours, the silvers, the golds, the coppers, seem to hold their stability maybe a little bit better than other plastics. So this sword will go straight, fade straight forward as well for me. As well, a little bit of more turn into a headwind, so I don't tend to throw it into too much of a headwind unless I'm expecting that turn, but it's a great straight disc for me. Downwind, tailwinds, I'm using another sword. This one was given to me by Reese Kruger from Fourth Circle Discs, who's dyed that one for us. This one has got a lot more turn to it, so this is my right turning disc when I'm looking for some distance out of it there. Nice glide, generally goes to the right unless I'm throwing it in with a tailwind, and then it stays pretty straight. Moving on to my 9 speeds. I think DD makes some fantastic 9-speed drivers, and this is where probably my bread and butter is a little bit more so. I'm more comfortable throwing the 9 speeds. I'm happy to go up to those discs when the time is right, but the 9 speeds are certainly right in my wheelhouse. Going from overstable to understable, I've got a Fusion Felon. Most of my discs you'll find are usually sort of Fusion. I prefer the feel of the plastic. Fusion Felon Team Trilogy stamp, really nicely, reliably overstable for me. I'm often using this on forehands for shorter distances than my Ballista, and it's a really reliable disc from that perspective. So Felons are a great little disc. I'll use those for backhand hyzers as well. Stepping down stability from there, I've got a Getaway Fusion Burst. This has got a little bit more glide to it. I use it in combination with a Convict. So the Convict will sit up and flatten out and still get a good reliable fade. This will tend to stay on that line, and without the turnover it'll get more fade, but it's maybe slightly more distance than the Convict. So I use them in two different sort of situations. Slightly longer, slightly more overstable, slightly shorter, slightly less overstable, but still with a really good finish. So I'm really liking the Getaway and the Convict. Stepping down from there, I've got a prototype Lucid Vandal. This has been a real surprise to me. This disc gets me some really good distance. It will turn over at a reasonable sort of rate, but still give me a nice fade at the end. So I've really been enjoying throwing a Vandal. I'd recommend this to anybody who has that slower arm speed, because you can get a little bit more turn on that with some reliable fade. I'm told that the stock Vandals, maybe the Trilogy Challenge Vandals, maybe not quite as overstable as the prototype, but the prototype Lucid is fantastic. Stepping down in stability from that, I've got a Hatchet. The Hatchet is more my turnover disc. Also, I'll use this for backhand rollers as well. So that's been in my bag for a while. Okay, going down to 7 speeds. I've got a Lucid Maverick prototype again. Nice glide. For a 4 glide, it's sneaky long glide for a 7 speed. Great disc for getting a nice long straight throw. Probably turns a little bit to the right for me. Certainly as they beat in, they get a little bit more unstable as they go. But you can throw that reasonably easy and get a nice long straight line out of it. If you really want to mash on a straight throw disc, Lucid X Maverick. Okay, Zach Melton, Lucid X Maverick. You can throw these a bit harder and look for that nice straight reliable throw. Again, just really good glide from a disc. It doesn't say it glides very much. Usually you get a little bit of fade there towards the end as well. In addition to that, I've got my Team Trilogy Stamp River Gold Line. It is a disc that tends to hold a line for me. I can put it on any line and it will hold that line. Nice big long anhyzers out of that, and it's super glidey. So sometimes if my stance is compromised, I need to get out of a position where I don't really have a lot of power. I can rely on something like this to give me a little bit more glide and maybe a little bit more distance when other discs won't be able to do that for me. So that's kind of like a bit of a get out of trouble disc, as well as something that I can put on some nice long lines. Down to my 5 speeds and 4 speeds. So I'll go down to 5s and 4s. Most overstable, Justice. Fantastically unique disc. I think everybody needs one. Get out of trouble, utility, skips, hyzer skips, nice hard hyzers around a corner. I use these things for forehand rollers. Amazingly consistent forehand roller because of the width of the actual rim. It's not a deep disc, so I can quite comfortably sidearm these when I'm getting out of trouble. It doesn't go very far, but my God, it's so reliable in any conditions. Wind, whatever, it doesn't make any difference. This thing just does what it does every single time. Can't recommend it to Justice enough. I've got an EMAC Truth. Truths are seemingly really, really long throwers. They go much further than you think a mid-range is going to go. So you can mash on these. This will give me a nice S curve. It will turn over, but it will fade back a little bit for a reasonably sort of straight finish. I must admit, I don't use a whole heap of mid-ranges. I find myself more comfortable throwing a hyzer with a more overstable disc, be that a Justice, be that a Felon, and throwing either sidearm or backhand, I don't tend to fashion. I'm not good enough necessarily to fashion shots with mid-ranges and that sort of thing. So this is a nice S-curve for me and some decent sort of distance. I then also have a Fusion Felon. So that's a Lucid EMAC Truth, a Fusion Truth, Premac Truth. This will give me a nice slow turn to the right as I throw it, again with really good distance, so just a very slow right turner for me with a backhand. So that comes in handy from time to time, and I'm trying to keep things to the right of a fairway. If I really want to go right, again, some really nice glide on this sort of disc, Utersis. So nice turnover, turning right with the backhand, nice glide as well. Going from there, if those discs are going a little too far for me, what I found is the new Gatekeeper, Lucid Gatekeeper. Fantastically straight disc with just a tiny bit of fade at the end. So reliably straight, unbelievably straight. So this is a great disc for approaches. If you've got not a lot of wind and you want to get something perfectly dead straight. My other workhorse is the Harp. So tournament Harp, I've found that these glide a little bit further. I've found some of the BT plastics don't tend to glide very much. So I've got a tournament Harp. It's nice and reliably overstable. I'll use this for jump putts. I will use this for approaches, both sidearm and backhand. More backhand than sidearm because it is a little deeper than the Justice. So normally sidearm approaches, I'm probably reaching for a Justice. Backhand approaches and long jump putts, I'm often reaching for this for its reliability. Down to my putter lineup. Again, this is where we start with our shields. Tournament shield, donut. A lot of people have seen my donut. Nice, straight glidey approaches to the basket there. So I really like the old donut shield. Because I'm looking at trying to replicate the shots, the same type of shot each time, I've got a deputy for those right turning approaches as well. Stuff that I need to stay right, that's really short distance, that I know I'm going to throw really slow, but it's still going to turn for me. I've got a deputy, a classic hard deputy, HPS, deputy for those shots that need to stay right. And last but not least, shield. BT Heartburst shield, fantastic putter. It makes you have to putt at the basket. It doesn't have a great deal of glide, so you've really got to commit to your putt, and I really like that about the shield. It has helped me a great deal in getting a really consistent throw, really consistent action, because I know I've got to commit. I can't just glide it to the basket. I've got to push it at the basket and really make sure it gets there. So you guys know how much I love the shields. If you haven't tried them, give them a try. If you're struggling with your putting, you're not sure what's going on with how much glide it should have, what's going to happen to it in the wind and all those sorts of things, this is the putter for you. In addition to my BT Hard, everybody should have probably one of these as well, Mega Soft Shield. I'm using this for death putt approaches, things with quick drop-offs, stuff that I just need to get to the ground on slopes that I know is not going to roll away. I can flop it up here and just pop it onto a green and know it's not going anywhere, even if I miss. So this is a super useful disc. I pull this out at Point Mina in Tasmania, for those who've played it, which is basically on a hillside, and I can putt with 100% confidence knowing that it's not going anywhere other than where it lands, basically. So that's really, really useful. What else do I have in my bag? Always carry a couple of minis, so my DD Mini, my little golf ball mini here, usually carry two just in case I lose one, or maybe I need to lend one to somebody, so usually two minis in there. In my side pocket, I've got my rules, I've got a plastic scorecard, painkillers. What else do I have? On this side, I have my faithful Sharpie gels, Cliff gels, energy shots, really good partway through a round if you're starting to fade a little bit. Just take one of the gels with a little bit of water, and that keeps you going really, really well. So I usually keep a little stash of those. Speaking of water, I've got my DD canteen here as well. Keeps the water fantastically cold for hours at a time, so and at a good size here. So I'll normally carry that with me rather than use the pouch, unless it's a really hot day, and I'll use the water pouch plus my water bottle as well, so I've got plenty of water out there. In the top of my bag, I'm carrying some towels, a fair few of them just in case you've got a wet day, a rain jacket for any emergencies. It's not going to happen today. There's my rain fly for the Ranger. I've got a sports sack in here as well, so keep my hands dry in those sorts of situations. More so here in Australia, we're not getting so much humid weather, but we're getting wet weather. In wet weather, I can actually just rely on keeping my hands dry with a sports sack. I have some electrolyte tablets, really good for the hot Australian weather as well. Pop 1 or 2 of those into a canteen for a bit more electrolyte relief. And one thing which I've actually talked to a lot of people about is suntan lotion or sun cream. This is called Repel. It's made by the Council of WA. It's a 50 plus sunscreen, but it's also an insect repellent, and it works fantastically as an insect repellent. Put on your legs. I've never had a tick or been bothered with midges or mosquitoes or anything like that if I've got this stuff on. It is brilliant stuff, and I couldn't recommend that more. The combined sunscreen and fly repellent. Now that's pretty much all that is in my bag. Thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, please pop them up and I'll do my best to answer them. As I say, I'm not the professional that a lot of the other guys are. I'm throwing stuff that's a little bit more perhaps understable at times. It helps me that I've got a forehand and a backhand that I can rely on more, so an hyzer approach for either in the best of times. But for distance, I need those little bit of extra bits of understability. So Sheriffs, Swords, Convicts, Vandals, fantastic disc for me, and Maverick is a fantastic disc for me. And then once I get down into the mid-ranges and those sorts of things, I've got enough power to use and shape shots if I need to. Generally, again though, I'm looking to just go with the speed of the disc and hopefully then have the disc turn in whatever direction it is based on the speed that I'm throwing it at. So that is my bag. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.